I stood in the shadows of the hospital parking garage, watching my paralyzed husband sprint toward a food truck. Just 3 hours ago, I had been wiping his tears while he begged me not to put him in a care home. He was not limping. He was not in pain. He was actually skipping. I did not scream. I did not take a photo. I just unlocked my car, sat in the driver's seat, and realized I was going to destroy him completely. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. The air inside Mercy General Hospital did not smell like healing. It smelled like industrial lemon cleaner, masking the scent of old biology and despair. It was a thick, chemical odor that coated the back of my throat and made the water from the cooler taste like floor wax. I shifted my weight on the vinyl recliner, which had been designed by someone who hated the human spine. My lower back throbbed with a dull, rhythmic ache, a reminder that I had spent the last 72 hours contorted into shapes that no 30-year-old accountant should ever have to endure. I looked at the man in the bed, Travis, my husband. He looked small. That was the first thing that terrified me when I saw him after the accident. Travis was a man who usually took up all the oxygen in a room, loud and charismatic and physically imposing. Now, encased in plaster and suspended in a traction rig that looked like a medieval torture device, he seemed reduced to a collection of broken parts. His legs were elevated, wrapped in thick white casts that went all the way up to his thighs. His face was pale, glistening with a sheen of sweat that I had been dabbing away every 20 minutes for 3 days. He let out a low, ragged groan. It was a sound that twisted my stomach into knots. "Water," he rasped. His voice was like sandpaper dragging across stone. I was out of the chair before my brain even registered the movement. My own legs were numb from lack of circulation, pins and needles shooting up my calves, but I ignored it. I grabbed the plastic cup with the bendy straw and brought it to his lips. Slowly, I whispered, "Just small sips, Travis. Do not choke." He drank greedily, his eyes squeezed shut. When he pulled away, he looked at me with an expression of such profound weakness and gratitude that I felt a fresh wave of guilt crash over me. I should have been doing more. I should have been here earlier this morning. I should have fought harder with the insurance company on the phone an hour ago. "Mallory," he whispered, opening his eyes. They were bloodshot, rimmed with red exhaustion. "You look terrible. Go home, please. I hate seeing you like this." I shook my head, forcing a smile that felt tight and brittle on my face. "I am fine," I said. "I am not going anywhere. We are in this together, remember? In sickness and in health. This is just the sickness part. We will get to the health part soon." Travis sighed, a long, shuddering exhalation that seemed to rattle his ribs. "I feel so useless," he said. "I wrecked the car. I wrecked my legs. And now I am wrecking your career because you are stuck here, babysitting a cripple." "Don't say that," I said firmly, smoothing the blanket over his chest. "It was an accident. The brakes failed. You are lucky to be alive. That is all that matters." But as I said the words, my mind flashed back to the police report. No skid marks. Impact with a concrete median at 40 miles per hour. The officers had been polite but confused. They said it looked like he had not even tried to turn. I had buried that detail deep in the back of my mind, under layers of panic and adrenaline. Now was not the time to analyze physics. Now was the time to be a wife. I sat back down, the vinyl chair squeaking in the silence. The room was dark, lit only by the flickering green light of the heart monitor and the ambient glow of the city filtering through the blinds. In the other bed, separated by a thin curtain, the roommate, Mr. Henderson, was snoring softly. It was a peaceful scene, objectively. But inside my head, it felt like a bomb was ticking, and I could not find the wire to cut. The door swooshed open with a cheerful energy that felt violent in the quiet room. Jessica breezed in, bringing with her a gust of cold air and the scent of overly sweet vanilla perfume. She was Travis's cousin, technically, though the family tree was a bit tangled on his father's side. She was 24, fresh out of college, and possessed an energy level that exhausted me just by proximity. She was carrying 3 different tote bags and a cardboard carrier full of coffees. "Good morning, family," she whispered, her voice an aggressive stage whisper that was actually louder than normal speech. She set the coffees down on the rolling tray table with a little too much force. The dark liquid sloshed against the lids. "I brought the good stuff," she announced, beaming at me. "Triple shot espresso for the working girl, and a bone broth protein smoothie for the patient. I read online that collagen is essential for bone knitting. We need to get those legs knitting, Travis." Travis offered her a weak, pained smile. "You are an angel, Jess. I do not know what we would do without you." I felt a sudden, sharp prick of irritation. I had been wiping his brow and changing his bedpans for 3 days. Jessica had popped in for an hour here and there to drop off takeout and gossip about her job search. But seeing the way Travis's face brightened, I shoved the jealousy down. I was being petty. I was just tired. I needed to be grateful. Jessica bustled around the bed, fluffing pillows that did not need fluffing and rearranging the get well cards on the windowsill. "Mallory, seriously, look at your skin," she said, pausing to scrutinize my face. "You look gray. Like, actually, gray. You need to go home, take a shower, and sleep for 12 hours. I will take the night shift." I stiffened. "No," I said, "I am staying. He might need the pain meds adjusted in the night. The nurses sometimes forget." "Oh, stop being a martyr," Jessica said, laughing lightly as she patted Travis's arm. "The nurses are professionals, and I am here. I am family too, you know. I can push a button if he hurts. Besides, Travis told me he is worried about you driving when you are this tired." I looked at Travis. He nodded slowly, his eyes full of that puppy dog concern. "She is right, Mal," he said. "You are swaying on your feet. If you crash your car, then who is going to take care of me? Please, for my peace of mind. Just go get a good night's sleep and come back fresh tomorrow." I looked between the two of them. They were a united front of concern, logical, reasonable concern. My brain told me they were right. My body, aching in every joint, screamed that they were right. But something in my gut, some primal instinct buried under the fatigue, whispered that I should not leave. "I do not want to leave you alone," I said, my voice sounding smaller than I intended. "I am not alone," Travis said softly. "I have Jess. And I have you, even when you are not here. Just go, please." Jessica was already ushering me toward the door, her hands on my shoulders, physically steering me away from the bed. "Go, go, go," she chanted playfully. "I will text you if he so much as sneezes. I promise." I grabbed my purse, feeling like I was being evicted from my own life. "Fine," I said. "But call me. Seriously. If anything happens." "I will," Jessica promised, flashing a bright white smile. "Now shoo." As I walked out into the hallway, I glanced back. Jessica was already leaning over the bed, whispering something to Travis. He wasn't groaning anymore. He looked attentive. I told myself it was just the pain medication kicking in. I told myself I was imagining things. I made it as far as the nurse's station before I realized I had left my laptop charger plugged into the wall behind the recliner. I groaned audibly. The thought of walking back into that room, of facing Jessica's chipper dismissal again, was agonizing. But I needed the computer for work tomorrow. I turned around and trudged back down the corridor. The floor was freshly waxed, squeaking under my sneakers. When I reached room 307, the door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open, ready to apologize for the intrusion. Inside, Nurse Helen was standing by the bed. Helen was a woman made of granite and efficiency. She was the head nurse of the orthopedic ward, a veteran who had seen everything and was impressed by nothing. She was adjusting the drip on Travis's IV bag. Jessica was nowhere to be seen, probably in the bathroom or down at the vending machines. Travis's eyes were closed. He appeared to be asleep. "Oh, Nurse Helen," I whispered. "I just forgot my charger." Helen didn't turn around immediately. She finished adjusting the flow rate, her movements precise and mechanical. Then she pivoted. Her face was impassive, but her eyes, sharp, dark eyes that missed nothing, locked onto mine with an intensity that made me stop walking. She didn't say a word. She walked toward me, passing me on her way to the door. As she came parallel to me, she stumbled. It was a slight movement completely out of character for someone so sure-footed. Her shoulder bumped into mine. "Sorry," she mumbled. I instinctively reached out to steady her, and that was when I felt it. Her hand pressed against my palm. A piece of paper, small and folded into a tight square, was shoved into my hand. Her fingers closed mine around it, a firm, deliberate squeeze. Before I could say anything, before I could even gasp, she was moving again. She walked past me and out the door, her rubber-soled shoes silent on the tile. I stood frozen in the middle of the room. My hand was clenched into a fist at my side, the sharp corner of the paper digging into my skin. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. Travis stirred in the bed. "Mallory?" he mumbled, his eyes still closed. "Is that you?" I stared at him. He looked so peaceful, so helpless. "Yeah," I said, my voice trembling slightly. Just forgot my charger." I grabbed the cord from the wall, shoving it into my bag without winding it up. I kept the piece of paper hidden in my right hand, terrified that if I opened it here, if I even looked at it, the walls would see. "Go home, Mal," Travis murmured. "I am going," I said. I turned and walked out, my fist clenched so tight my knuckles were white. I did not go to the elevator. I ducked into the women's restroom halfway down the hall. It was empty, thank God. I went into the furthest stall and locked the door. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my purse into the toilet. I sat down on the lid of the closed commode and took a deep, shuddering breath. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead, a flickering, headache-inducing strobe. I opened my hand. The paper was a generic brown paper towel from the hospital dispenser, rough and fibrous. It had been folded over 3 times. I unfolded it. The ink was blue ballpoint, the handwriting hurried and jagged, as if written against a wall or a clipboard while walking. I read the words. "Stop coming in the morning. Come at 2 a.m. Park on the street, not the garage. He is not sleeping." I read it again, and then a 3rd time. "He is not sleeping." The words swam before my eyes. What did that mean? Of course he wasn't sleeping well. He was in traction. He had broken femurs. He was in agony. But Nurse Helen was not the type to play games. She was the type of woman who measured medication to the microgram. If she risked her job to slip me a note, it wasn't a riddle. It was a warning. I thought about the last 3 days, the way Travis would groan loudly whenever I came near the bed, the way he kept his phone under his pillow, clutching it like a lifeline, the way Jessica always seemed to intercept me before I could get too close to his legs. Come at 2 a.m. My mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. Maybe he was addicted to the pain meds? Maybe he was buying drugs from someone on the night shift? That would explain the secrecy. That would explain the phone. But "he is not sleeping" felt darker than drug-seeking. It felt like an accusation of performance. I felt a wave of nausea. I wanted to tear the note up and flush it. I wanted to go home and sleep and pretend this was just a weird, paranoid misunderstanding. But I was an accountant. I dealt in audits. I dealt in facts that did not add up. And right now, the ledger of my husband's accident had a discrepancy that I could not ignore. I folded the rough paper towel carefully and tucked it into the hidden zippered pocket of my purse, right next to my emergency cash. I flushed the toilet just for the noise and washed my face in the sink. The woman staring back at me in the mirror looked terrified. I practiced a neutral expression: blank, boring, tired. I could do tired. I had to pass room 307 one more time to get to the elevators. I told myself to keep walking, to just keep my head down and go, but I stopped. The door was still open. I peered in from the hallway darkness. Jessica was sitting in the recliner now, scrolling on her phone. Travis was still motionless in the bed, but then I saw the eyes. In the other bed, Mr. Henderson was awake. Mr. Henderson was listed on the chart as an 80-year-old slip-and-fall case with mild dementia. For the past 3 days, I had barely heard him speak a coherent sentence. He mostly mumbled about his cats or complained about the soup being too cold. But right now, in the dim light of the room, he wasn't mumbling. He was propped up on one elbow, staring directly at Travis. His gaze was not vacant. It was sharp, predatory almost. He was watching Travis with the intensity of a man watching a television show he despised but couldn't turn off. Then, his eyes shifted. He looked toward the door. He saw me standing in the hallway. I froze. Mr. Henderson did not wave. He did not smile. He simply raised one bony finger to his lips in a universal shh gesture. Then he pointed at Travis. And then he pointed to his own eyes and back at Travis. I see him. My breath caught in my throat. Jessica shifted in her chair, and Mr. Henderson instantly flopped back onto his pillow, his mouth falling open in a convincing imitation of senile sleep. The transformation was so instant, so professional, that it chilled me more than the note. Mr. Henderson wasn't crazy. He was acting. And if the roommate was pretending to be asleep to watch my husband, then my husband was doing something worth watching. I turned and walked to the elevators, my footsteps fast and hard. The elevator dinged, a cheerful sound that felt mocking. I stepped inside and hit the button for the lobby, feeling the floor drop out from under me in more ways than one. The drive home was a blur of highway lights and panic. I drove on autopilot, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my forearms cramped. The note burned in my purse. Park on the street. Come at 2 a.m. I exited the highway and turned onto the winding roads that led to the Biltmore estate. The house loomed out of the darkness like a Gothic novel illustration. It was a sprawling Victorian mansion, complete with a turret and a wraparound porch that desperately needed repainting. It was my inheritance, left to me by my parents, who had died when I was 22. It was my pride and joy. It was also my albatross. Travis hated the house. He called it the money pit. He complained about the drafty windows, the ancient plumbing, the distance from the city center. For the last year, ever since his construction business started faltering, he had been pressuring me to sell it. "We could get $1 million for it, Mal," he would say. "Maybe 1.2. We could buy a sleek condo downtown and still have enough to invest. We could be free." But I couldn't do it. This house was the only thing I had left of my family. Every creak in the floorboards sounded like my father's footsteps. Every rosebush in the garden was something my mother had planted. Selling it felt like erasing them. I pulled into the long gravel driveway. The house was dark, silent and imposing. I killed the engine and sat in the silence. I thought about the conversation I'd overheard earlier today between Travis and his mother, Mrs. Granger. She had been crying, holding his hand. "You have to convince her, Travis," she had sobbed. "The medical bills alone. You are going to be disabled. You need the cash. She has to sell the house." Travis had looked at me then, his eyes full of tragic resignation. "I do not want to force her, Mom. It is her parents' house. I would rather die than take that from her. It had been such a noble sentiment. It had made me want to sign the deed over right then and there just to save him. But now I touch the purse sitting on the passenger seat. He's not sleeping. If Travis wasn't as injured as he claimed, then the medical bills weren't real. And if the medical bills weren't real, then the pressure to sell the house wasn't about survival. It was about the money. A cold realization seeped into my bones, chilling me more than the night air. This wasn't an accident. This was a heist, and I was the bank. I looked up at the dark windows of my parents' home. "If they want this house," I whispered to the empty car, "they are going to have to kill me for it." I opened the car door and stepped out into the night. I checked my watch. It was 11:30. 2 a.m. was 2.5 hours away. I wasn't going to sleep. I was going to change my clothes, drink a pot of coffee, and then I was going back to that hospital. And I was going to find out exactly what kind of game my husband was playing. I could not just sit there and wait for the clock to strike 2 in the morning. The silence of the house was suffocating, heavy with the ghosts of my parents and the lies of my husband. I paced the kitchen, my footsteps echoing on the hardwood floors my father had refinished by hand 20 years ago. I needed coffee, but my hands were shaking too much to operate the machine. I needed something to do. I needed to investigate. I started with the kitchen trash can. It was a stainless steel pedal bin that Travis usually insisted on emptying because he said I didn't tie the bags tight enough. It was full. I pulled the bag out, ignoring the smell of stale coffee grounds and vegetable peelings, and dumped the contents onto the tiled floor. I sifted through the mess like a raccoon. I pushed aside empty yogurt containers and eggshells until my fingers brushed against a stiff, crumpled ball of paper near the bottom. It was stained with coffee, but the thermal paper was still legible. I smoothed it out on the counter, wiping away a smear of tomato sauce. It was a receipt from the Gilded Steer, the most expensive steakhouse in the city. I stared at the timestamp printed at the bottom. It read 7:45 in the evening, 3 days ago. My blood ran cold. 3 days ago, at 7:45, Travis was supposedly lying in the emergency room trauma bay, drifting in and out of consciousness while doctors assessed his shattered legs. I had been in the waiting room crying into a tissue, terrified he was going to die. I looked at the items listed: 2 ribeye steaks, 2 loaded baked potatoes, a bottle of Cabernet, and a chocolate lava cake. The total came to $340. I felt a wave of dizziness that had nothing to do with exhaustion. He had not been in surgery. He, or someone using his card, had been eating a feast while I prayed for his life. I checked the last 4 digits of the card number listed on the slip. It was our joint account. The one he said was overdrawn. I gripped the edge of the counter. This was not just a lie about an injury. This was a lie about where he was, who he was with, and what was actually happening while I was falling apart. I left the house at 1 in the morning. I could not stay within those walls a second longer. The receipt was folded into a tiny square and shoved into my bra, right against my skin, burning like a brand. My car, a 10-year-old sedan that Travis had promised to take to the mechanic 6 months ago, groaned when I turned the key. The engine sputtered, coughed, and then died. I slammed my hands against the steering wheel. No, not now. I tried again. The engine turned over with a sickly wheeze, caught, and then idled with a violent shudder. The check engine light blinked on the dashboard, an angry orange eye mocking me. I pulled out of the driveway, my heart in my throat. The hospital was 30 minutes away. If the car died on the highway in the middle of the night, I would be stranded. I would miss my window. I would fail. I drove slowly, sticking to the right lane, gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Every bump in the road felt like a catastrophe. The car jerked and surged, the transmission slipping every time I tried to accelerate past 40 miles per hour. Rain started to fall, a cold, miserable drizzle that smeared across the windshield because the wipers were old and cracked. I squinted through the blurry glass, my entire body tense. "Please," I whispered to the dashboard, "just get me there. Just this one time." A massive truck roared past me in the left lane, spraying a sheet of dirty water over my car. I blinded out for a second, fighting the urge to slam on the brakes. I kept my foot steady on the gas pedal, feeling the car tremble underneath me. It felt fragile. Everything in my life felt fragile, held together by rust and bad intentions. I parked 2 blocks away from the hospital, on a side street lined with sleeping brownstones. The note had said, "Park on the street." I did not want my license plate scanned by the garage cameras. I did not want a record of me being here. I pulled my hood up against the rain and walked fast. The city at 2 in the morning was a different world. It was quiet, but it was a heavy, watchful quiet. Shadows stretched long under the streetlights. A siren wailed in the distance, lonely and mournful. I reached the hospital grounds and skirted the main entrance. I knew there was a side door near the cafeteria loading dock that employees used for smoke breaks. It was usually propped open with a brick or a crate during the shift change. I rounded the corner and held my breath. The door was closed. I pushed on the bar, locked. Panic flared in my chest. I looked around. I could not go through the main lobby. The night security guard, Earl, knew me. He would say hello. He might even call the nurses' station to let them know I was coming up, trying to be helpful. Then I saw it. A few feet away, a young man in scrubs was leaning against the wall, shielding a lighter from the wind. He was smoking a cigarette, looking exhausted. I walked up to him, pitching my voice to sound desperate. "Excuse me," I said. "I forgot my badge inside. My husband is in the ICU. Can I just—" He looked at me, taking in my wet hair, my pale face, the sheer exhaustion radiating off me. He didn't ask for ID. He didn't ask for a name. He just shrugged and used his hip to bump the door open. "Go ahead," he mumbled, taking a drag. "Thank you," I breathed. I slipped inside, the warmth of the hallway hitting me like a physical blow. I was in. Now I just had to get to the third floor without being seen. I took the stairs, 3 flights. My legs burned, but I welcomed the pain. It grounded me. It reminded me I was awake, that this was real. I cracked the door to the 3rd floor hallway and peered out. The corridor was dim, the lights lowered for the night shift. The nurse's station was quiet. One nurse was typing at a computer, her back to me. Another was reading a book. I slipped out of the stairwell and moved along the wall, staying in the shadows. I felt like a criminal in a heist movie, except the prize was the destruction of my marriage. I reached room 307. The door was closed, but not latched. There was a gap of about an inch. I stood there, pressing my back against the cold wall, and listened. I expected silence. I expected the rhythmic whoosh of the ventilator or the soft beeping of monitors. Instead, I heard a thud, then a giggle. It was Jessica's voice. "Higher, Travis. Come on, you can do 10 more. Then a grunt, a male grunt of exertion, not pain. "I am trying, Jess. My abs are killing me." I stopped breathing. I turned my head slowly, inching my eye toward the gap in the door. Through the sliver of space, I saw the room. Travis was not in the bed. He was on the floor. He was wearing gym shorts and a t-shirt. His broken legs were out of the casts, which were sitting on the chair like discarded boots. He was doing crunches. His legs were hooked under the bed frame for leverage. He pulled himself up, sweat glistening on his forehead, his face red with effort. Jessica was sitting on the edge of the bed, eating a bag of chips, counting for him. 7, 8. "Looking good, Trav. You are going to be ripped by the time we get to Miami." I squeezed my eyes shut. The image burned into my brain. The casts on the chair, the crunches, the mention of Miami. It wasn't just a lie, it was a mockery. I wanted to kick the door open. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab the casts and smash them over his head, but I didn't. Attorney Stone's voice echoed in my head from a consultation I hadn't had yet, but I knew the logic. Evidence. You need evidence. If I walked in now, they would panic. They would make up a story. They would say it was physical therapy. They would say I was hallucinating from stress. I needed to record this. I fumbled for my phone in my pocket. My fingers were slippery with sweat and rain. I tried to unlock it, but my thumb was shaking too much for the sensor to read. I typed in the passcode, hitting the wrong number twice. Inside the room, the movement stopped. "Did you hear that?" Travis whispered. Silence. I froze, pressing myself flat against the wall next to the doorframe. "Probably just the janitor," Jessica said, her voice muffled by a mouthful of chips. "Relax. No one comes down here at 2 in the morning except Helen, and she is on break. Go check," Travis commanded. His voice was sharp, authoritative, not the weak, raspy voice he used with me. I heard footsteps approaching the door. Panic exploded in my chest. If she opened the door and saw me, the game was over. I looked around. There was nowhere to hide. The hallway was long and exposed, except for the linen cart. A large metal cart stacked with towels and sheets was parked about 5 feet away. I lunged for it, crouching down behind the far side, squeezing myself between the cart and the wall. The door to room 307 opened. I held my breath, my hands clamped over my mouth. Jessica stepped out. I could see her fuzzy pink slippers and the hem of her yoga pants from under the cart. She stood there for a moment, looking up and down the hallway. "Hello?" she called out softly. The air conditioner hummed. A distant elevator dinged. She stood there for what felt like an eternity. I could smell her vanilla perfume wafting over the smell of bleach. Finally, she huffed. "Paranoid," she muttered. She turned around and went back into the room, pulling the door shut until it clicked. I slumped against the wall, my heart hammering so hard I thought it would crack my ribs. I had not been seen, but I had missed my chance to record. I waited 5 minutes. 10. I heard the sounds of movement inside the room settle down. Then the door opened again. I stiffened behind the cart. This time, Jessica walked out carrying a toiletry bag. She turned left, heading toward the showers at the end of the hall. Travis was alone. This was it. I stood up, my knees trembling. I walked to the door and pushed it open silently. Travis was back in the bed. The casts were back on his legs. He was lying on his back, eyes closed, breathing evenly. The performance was flawless. I crept into the room. I didn't look at Travis. I went to the other bed. Mr. Henderson was awake. He was staring at the ceiling, his hands folded over his chest. I moved to his bedside. "Mr. Henderson," I whispered. He turned his head slowly. His eyes were clear, sharp, and utterly devoid of dementia. "You came back," he rasped. His voice was like dry leaves scraping together. "You told me he wasn't sleeping," I said. "I saw him. On the floor." Mr. Henderson let out a dry, wheezing chuckle. "He calls it his night workout," he said. "Does it every night between 2 and 3? Says he has to stay in shape for the beach." "The beach," I repeated, the word tasting like bile. "Miami," Mr. Henderson said. "I hear them talking. Selling a big house. Moving south. Buying a boat. He says his wife is a pushover. Says she will sign anything if he cries enough." Tears pricked my eyes, hot and angry. "He thinks I am deaf and blind," Mr. Henderson continued. "People always think the old are stupid. But I see. I see everything." "Will you help me?" I asked. I grabbed his bony hand. "If I need you to tell someone, to tell a lawyer, will you say what you saw?" He looked at me for a long moment. Then he squeezed my hand. His grip was surprisingly strong. "Get me a decent cup of coffee," he said. "Not this swill they serve here, a real roast, and I will sing like a canary." "Deal," I whispered. Footsteps sounded in the hall, the squeak of rubber soles. Jessica was coming back. I squeezed his hand one last time and ducked down, scrambling under Mr. Henderson's bed just as the door opened. I lay flat on my stomach under Mr. Henderson's bed, pressing my face into the cold linoleum. Dust bunnies the size of tumbleweeds drifted near my nose, threatening to make me sneeze. I held my breath until my lungs burned. Above me, the mattress springs squeaked. Mr. Henderson was shifting, creating a diversion of noise. The door to the room clicked shut. I heard the soft slap of flip-flops against the tile. Jessica. She hummed a tune, something upbeat and poppy that sounded grotesque in the quiet hospital room. I watched her feet from my vantage point. She walked to the recliner, kicked off the flip-flops, and curled up. For 20 minutes, I didn't move. My muscles cramped. The receipt in my bra scratched against my skin. Finally, the rhythm of her breathing changed. It deepened, becoming heavy and regular. A soft, whistling snore escaped her lips. Mr. Henderson's hand dropped over the side of the bed. He snapped his fingers once. The signal. I inched my way out. I moved like a sloth, sliding one limb at a time. I crawled past the foot of Travis's bed. I didn't dare look up to see if he was awake. If he saw me crawling on the floor like a commando, there was no explanation in the world that would save me. I reached the door. I reached up, turned the handle with agonizing slowness, and slipped into the hallway. The door latched behind me with a sound barely louder than a heartbeat. I leaned against the wall, gasping for air as if I had just surfaced from deep water. I was safe, but I wasn't done. I went home, showered the hospital smell off my skin, and drank 3 cups of black coffee. I didn't sleep. My mind was a whiteboard of calculations and strategies. I needed proof. The glimpse of the crunches wasn't enough. It was my word against his. I needed something digital, something undeniable. I dug through my junk drawer and found my old smartphone. The screen was cracked, but the camera still worked. I cleared the memory, taped over the red recording light with black electrical tape, and set it to silent. Then I went to the garden center. I bought the biggest, bushiest peace lily they had. It was a monstrosity of green leaves and white blooms, sitting in a heavy ceramic pot. I drove back to the hospital at 10 in the morning. The scene in room 307 was entirely different. Sunlight streamed in. The TV was blaring a game show. Travis was propped up, looking pale and tragic. Jessica was gone, probably sleeping off her night shift. Travis beamed when he saw me. "Mallory, you came back, and you brought flowers. You are too good to me." I set the heavy pot on the windowsill, positioning it carefully. "I just want things to be peaceful," I lied. My voice was steady. It terrified me how easy it was to lie to him now. I fussed with the leaves. While my back was to Travis, I wedged the old phone into the dense moss at the base of the plant. I angled the lens toward the bed. I hit record. "I hope you like it," I said, turning around. "It is beautiful," Travis said. I sat with him for an hour, playing the role of the doting wife. I held his hand. I talked about the weather. Inside, I was screaming. I was counting the minutes until I could leave and let the camera do its work. I returned at 7 that evening to swap the phone. I had a second identical phone ready in my purse to switch out so I wouldn't lose a minute of surveillance. But when I walked in, my heart sank. The windowsill was empty. My stomach dropped to my knees. "Where is the plant?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. Travis looked up from his dinner tray. "Oh, the nurse took it. She said the pollen might trigger Mr. Henderson's allergies. She moved it to the hallway station. Panic flooded my veins. If a nurse found the phone, they would call security. They would call the police." I excused myself and walked to the nurse's station. There, sitting on the high counter next to a stack of charts, was my peace lily. Nurse Helen was there, typing. I walked up, my heart pounding. "Hi," I said. "I heard the plant was an issue. I will just take it home." Helen looked at me. Her eyes dropped to the pot. Then she looked back at me. There was a flicker of understanding in her gaze. "Go ahead," she said. I grabbed the heavy pot and walked fast toward the elevators. As soon as the doors closed, I dug my fingers into the moss. The phone was still there. I let out a sob of relief. I pulled it out. The battery was dead. I rushed to my car, plugged it into the charger, and waited for it to boot up. I opened the gallery. There was one video file. It was 4 hours long. I hit play. The screen was black. I stared at it, wanting to throw the phone through the windshield. A leaf. A single stupid peace lily leaf had slumped over the lens 5 minutes after I left. I had 4 hours of darkness. But then I heard voices. The audio was crisp. The phone had been close enough to pick up everything. I sat in my car in the parking garage and listened. For the first 2 hours, it was just the sounds of the hospital. Beeps, footsteps, the TV. Then, around the 3-hour mark, the door opened. Jessica's voice. Did she leave? Travis? Yeah, she's so gullible. She actually thinks I like plants. A rustling sound. Then the sound of a zipper. Travis. Man, these casts are itchy. Help me scratch my calf. The sound of fingernails on skin. Not on plaster. On skin. Jessica. We need to push her on the house, Trav. Vinny called me again. I pressed the phone closer to my ear. Vinny. Travis, I know. Vinny is a shark. He said if we do not have the cash by Friday, he is going to start breaking things that I actually need, like my fingers. Jessica, Friday is 2 days away. Do you think she will sign? Travis, she will sign. I will pull the I do not want to be a burden card again tonight. She eats that up. She is weak, Jess. She needs to feel useful. I paused the recording. My hands were trembling, but not from fear anymore. From rage. He wasn't just gambling with his own money, he was gambling with my safety. Vinny, a loan shark. The shark. Friday. That was the deadline. They weren't moving to Miami for the sunshine. They were running, and they were going to strip mine my life to pay for their ticket. I looked at the dashboard clock. It was Tuesday. I had 3 days before Vinny came looking for his money. I didn't need a video of him doing jumping jacks. I had his voice admitting to the fraud. I had his voice calling me weak. I wiped a tear from my cheek. I am not weak, Travis, I whispered. You have no idea what I am. I took a personal day from work the next morning and went to see Arthur Stone. He was a lawyer my father had used for estate planning, a man who wore suspenders and smelled of pipe tobacco and old leather books. He listened to me without interrupting. I played him the audio clip. I showed him the receipt. I told him about the crunches. When I finished, he sat back in his heavy oak chair and steepled his fingers. Mallory, he said, his voice gravelly, you have a mess. I know, I said. I want a divorce. And I want to keep my house. Stone nodded. We can get you a divorce. But first we need to protect you. What you are describing is constructive fraud. He is creating a false emergency to coerce you into liquidating assets. If we file for divorce today, he will freeze the accounts. He might even flee. So what do? I asked. You let him think he has won, Stone said. He leaned forward, his eyes gleaming behind his spectacles. You proceed with the sale. Or rather, you tell him you are proceeding. You get him to admit to the debts on record. You get him to sign a document stating that the proceeds of the house are solely for his medical care. And then, Stone smiled, a cold, shark-like smile that made me feel safe for the first time in days. We dropped the hammer, but we need to time it perfectly. When is this Friday deadline? 2 days, I said. Then you have 2 days to be the best actress in the world, he said. My phone buzzed on the desk. It was a text from Travis. Baby, the pain is really bad today. I am scared. Please come see me. I showed the screen to Stone. He is good, Stone noted. I picked up the phone. I am better, I said. I walked into room 307 at noon. I was wearing my best defeated wife costume. No makeup, hair in a messy bun, shoulders slumped. Travis was alone. He looked up, his face contorted into a mask of suffering. Mallory, he whined. It hurts. I walked to the side of the bed and took his hand. It felt clammy. I fought the urge to recoil. Travis, I said, my voice trembling. I made a decision. He went still. His eyes locked onto mine. What decision? He asked. I cannot watch you suffer like this, I said, and I cannot let us drown in debt. I called the realtor this morning. I paused for effect. I saw the hope flare in his eyes, bright and hungry. I am listing the house, I said. We are going to sell it. I told them to price it for a quick sale. Travis let out a breath that sounded like a tire deflating. He squeezed my hand hard. Oh, baby, he said, and I saw real tears of relief pool in his eyes. You are saving us. You are saving my life. I am doing what I have to do, I said. Just promise me one thing, he said. Promise me we can do this fast. I want to get out of here. I want to start over. We will, I promised. By Friday, it will all be over. He pulled me down for a hug. I let him wrap his arms around me. I smelled his sweat and the hospital soap. I love you, Mal, he whispered into my ear. I stared over his shoulder at the empty wall. I know, I thought. You love what I can give you. I pulled away and forced a smile. I have to go sign the papers, I said. Go, he said, waving me off. Go save us. As I walked out the door, I didn't look back, but I heard it. The moment the latch clicked, I heard him let out a whoop of joy. Yes, he shouted. Jess, pick up the phone. I walked down the hallway, my heels clicking on the tile like the ticking of a clock. I walked away from the room, my heels clicking a steady rhythm, but I stopped once I rounded the corner near the custodial closet. I wasn't leaving. I needed to see the mask slip. I crept back toward room 307. The door was closed, but the large glass panel of the fire extinguisher case on the opposite wall acted like a mirror. If I stood at the perfect angle, I could see through the small rectangular window in the door. I adjusted my position until the interior of the room slid into view. The grieving, pain-racked husband was gone. Travis was sitting straight up in bed, his arms thrown wide in victory. Jessica was doing a little shimmy dance at the foot of the bed, shaking her hips. I couldn't hear their words clearly through the heavy door, but I didn't need to. Their body language was screaming. They high-fived. Then Travis grabbed Jessica's hand and pulled her close for a kiss. Not a cousinly peck, but a deep, lingering smash of mouths that made my stomach turn over. Then the door opened slightly. A nurse was coming out. I ducked back, but the door stayed cracked for a second before the hydraulic closer caught it. In that second, the sound drifted out. Travis's voice clear and laughing. "God, she is such a good little soldier," he said. I almost felt bad when she started crying. Almost. Jessica giggled. "You are doing her a favor, babe. That house is a rotting pile of wood. We are freeing her. It is practically charity." Charity, I thought, my fingernails digging into my palms. "You are right, Jessica. I am about to give you a donation you will never forget." I retreated to the waiting room, needing to put distance between myself and the nausea. I sat there for 20 minutes, staring at a year-old magazine until the elevator doors opened and Aaron walked out. Aaron was Travis's younger brother. He was the opposite of Travis in every way. Quiet, employed as a mechanic, and plagued by a perpetual anxiety that made him a terrible liar. He was holding a Tupperware container that smelled like lasagna. "Mallory?" he asked, seeing me in the corner. He walked over, his face etched with worry. He looked tired. Grease stains were still visible under his fingernails. "Hey, Aaron," I said, standing up to hug him. He hugged me back, a solid, honest squeeze. "How is he?" Aaron asked, pulling away. "Mom said you are selling the Biltmore house. Mal, are you sure? I know how much you love that place." I looked at him. I saw the genuine concern in his eyes. He didn't know. He had no idea his brother was a con artist and his mother was an enabler. If I told him, it would break his heart. Or worse, he would confront Travis and Travis would panic and run before Friday. "I have to do it, Aaron," I lied. "It is the only way to pay the bills." Aaron looked down at his boots. "I wish I had the money," he mumbled. "I offered to sell my truck, but Mom said it wouldn't be enough. It just feels wrong, Mal. Travis, he has always been—" He trailed off. "Always been what?" I asked gently. "Lucky," Aaron said, looking up. "He always lands on his feet while everyone else cleans up the mess. I just hate that you are the one paying for it this time." I squeezed his arm. "Do not worry about me, Aaron. I am tougher than I look. Go give him the lasagna. He is starving." I watched him walk down the hall, a good man walking into a nest of vipers. I felt a pang of regret. When the bomb went off on Friday, Aaron was going to get hit by the shrapnel. I hated that, but I couldn't save everyone. I needed caffeine to keep my hands from shaking. I went down to the hospital cafeteria, a sterile, fluorescent-lit basement that smelled of burnt toast and despair. I bought a black coffee and found a table in the far corner, away from the doctors eating their salads. I was stirring a packet of sugar into the cup when a shadow fell over the table. "Mind if I sit?" I looked up. A man was standing there. He was wearing a suit that was too expensive for a hospital visitor and a gold watch that caught the light. He was thick-necked, with a face that looked like it had been carved out of cold dough. "I do not know you," I said. He sat down anyway, pulling the chair out with a scrape of metal on tile. "I am a friend of Travis," he said. "Name is Sal." My heart hammered against my ribs. Sal, one of Vinny's guys. "Travis is upstairs," I said, my voice tight. "I know," Sal said. He picked up a napkin and started folding it into a triangle, his movements slow and precise. "But I wanted to talk to the decision maker. Travis says you are closing on a property." I stared at him. This was the threat. This was the reality of what Travis had done. He had brought monsters into my life. "We are," I said. "Good," Sal said. He smoothed the napkin flat. "Because Friday is a hard date for us. We have schedules to keep, inventory to manage. You understand business, right?" "I understand," I said. Sal smiled. It did not reach his eyes. "Great. Because if the schedule slips, things get messy, and nobody likes a mess, especially not a pretty lady like you. It would be a shame if stress caused you to have an accident, or Travis." He stood up, buttoned his jacket, and tapped the table once with his index finger. "Friday, noon. Tell Travis we are rooting for him." He walked away, blending into the crowd of orderlies and grieving families. I looked down at my coffee. The surface was vibrating because my knees were bouncing under the table. This wasn't a game anymore. If I didn't pull this off perfectly, these men wouldn't just break Travis's legs for real. They would come for me. I went back up to the room. I had to lock it in. Travis was picking at the lasagna Aaron had brought. Jessica was back, sitting in the corner, scrolling on her phone. They both looked up when I entered. I smiled. It was the hardest smile of my life. "I have good news," I said. Travis put down his fork. "Yeah? I just got off the phone with the bank and the buyers," I said. "They are rushing the wire transfer. The money will be in my account on Friday morning." Travis let out a breath, his shoulders dropping 2 inches. "Friday morning," he repeated. That is perfect." I walked over to the bed. "I told them to wire exactly $200,000 to your personal account first for the medical bills," I said. "The rest will go to savings." $200,000, Travis said, licking his lips. "Yeah, that should cover the surgery and the rehab." "And the pain?" I asked. He looked at me, tilting his head with that sickeningly sweet expression. Toxic positivity weaponized. "Mallory, honey, pain is just weakness leaving the body, right? This is a good thing. You will see. You will feel so much lighter without that old drafty house weighing you down. We are going to be free. You should be thanking the universe for this opportunity to downsize." I stared at him. He was reframing my loss as a spiritual gift. It was disgusting. "I am thankful," I said. "I am thankful for a lot of things right now." I checked my watch. "I have to go meet the movers," I said. "I will be back on Friday at noon to celebrate." "Make sure the transfer clears," Jessica piped up from the corner. "Banks can be glitchy." "It will clear," I said. "Do not worry, Jessica. Friday at noon, everyone gets exactly what they deserve." I drove straight to Mitchell's apartment. Mitchell was an old college friend who worked in AV for a local theater company. He wasn't a hacker, but he knew how to make things loud and clear. I sat on his couch explaining the plan. Mitchell looked pale. "So let me get this straight," he said. "You want to live stream a confession to a room full of loan sharks? Mallory, this is dangerous. Why not just go to the police?" "Because the police take reports," I said. "They file paperwork. I need immediate leverage. If I go to the cops now, Travis denies it, the sharks disappear, and I am still married to a fraud who might get killed in my house. I need to blow it up so completely that there is no debris left to hit me." Mitchell sighed and rubbed his face. "Okay," he said. "I cannot hack the hospital system. That is a felony, and I like my freedom." "I do not need you to hack," I said. "I need you to enhance this audio so it is crystal clear. And I need you to help me configure my laptop so that when I plug it into the HDMI port in the hospital room, it overrides the TV input instantly without me fumbling with a remote." "That I can do," Mitchell said. He spent 2 hours cleaning up the audio file I had recorded on the Peace Lily phone. He filtered out the air conditioner hum and boosted Travis's voice until the words, "Vinny and Miami," rang out like a bell. Then he set up a macro on my laptop. "One key press," he said, pointing to the spacebar. "You plug it in, you hit space, and it plays the video file full screen at max volume." He handed me the laptop. "Be careful, Mal," he said. "These guys do not play." "I know," I said. "Neither do I." Thursday night was the longest night of my life. The house was empty. Most of my personal things were packed in boxes, not because I was selling, but because I was leaving. Regardless of what happened tomorrow, I couldn't sleep in the bed I had shared with Travis. I sat at the kitchen table with a pen and a notepad. I needed to write this down, not for a judge, but for myself and for my parents. "Dear Mom and Dad," I wrote, "I am sorry. I almost lost it. I almost let a man take the one thing you worked your whole lives to give me. I was so desperate to be loved that I ignored the math. I ignored the intuition you tried to teach me. Tomorrow, I am going to gamble. I am going to walk into a room with bad men and a lying husband, and I am going to risk everything on a bluff. I am not selling the house. I never listed it. There is no buyer. There is no money coming on Friday. But they do not know that. I am terrified, but I am also done being the victim. If this goes wrong, I will lose everything. If it goes right, I get my life back. I hope you can forgive me for the scene I am about to cause." I put the pen down. The silence of the house pressed in on me. The floorboards creaked upstairs, but I wasn't scared of ghosts anymore. I was only afraid of failing. I closed the notebook. I turned off the lights. I went to the front door and double-locked it. Then I went to the hall closet and pulled out the tire iron from my roadside kit. I carried it upstairs and set it on the nightstand next to the bed. I lay down, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the sun to rise on Friday, the day the bill came due. Friday noon arrived with the brightness of a camera flash. The sun glared through the hospital window, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air of room 307. The room was crowded, too crowded. Travis was sitting up, shaved, combed, and wearing a fresh hospital gown. He looked like a king holding court. Jessica was next to him, practically vibrating with excitement. Mrs. Granger, my mother-in-law, was sitting in the recliner, clutching her handbag like it contained the crown jewels. Even Aaron was there, standing by the door, looking uncomfortable and shifting his weight from foot to foot. And Mr. Henderson. He was awake, sipping the dark roast coffee I had brought him earlier that morning, watching the room with a twinkle in his eye that said, "Showtime." I walked in carrying my laptop bag. Everyone stopped talking. "Mallory!" Travis cheered. His voice was thick with fake relief. "You are here. Did the wire clear? Is it done?" Mrs. Granger stood up, reaching for me. "Oh, thank goodness. We have been praying all morning, Mallory. You have done the right thing. You have saved this family." I stepped around her hug, moving toward the foot of the bed. "I need everyone to settle down," I said calmly. The bank had some specific requirements for the closing. Jessica's eyes narrowed. "What requirements? The money should be automatic." "They needed a final verification of the beneficiary," I lied smoothly. "Since the funds are for medical use, they need me to upload the final documentation right here, in the presence of the patient." Travis laughed, a nervous, jagged sound. "Bureaucracy, right? Just get it done, babe. I am ready to sign whatever." I placed my laptop on the rolling tray table. I plugged the HDMI cable from the wall-mounted TV into the side of my computer. The big screen above the bed flickered to life, mirroring my desktop. "I just need to play the file for the bank's verbal confirmation," I said. I looked at Aaron. "Aaron," I said softly, "you might want to step out into the hall." "Why?" Aaron asked, confused. "Just trust me," I said, "please. Step away from the bed." He looked at me, saw the hardness in my eyes, and backed up toward the door. I turned back to Travis. He was smiling, that wide, handsome, empty smile that had fooled me for 5 years. "I love you, Mallory," he said. "Thank you for making this sacrifice." I looked at him. "You are welcome," I said. My finger hovered over the spacebar. I hit the key. The screen above the bed went black for a second. Then the audio kicked in. It was loud. Mitchell had done a great job. The sound of a zipper filled the room, sounding like a chainsaw in the silence. "Man, these casts are itchy. Help me scratch my calf." Mrs. Granger gasped. "What is that?" Then the video appeared. It was grainy but undeniable. The timestamp in the corner read 2:30 in the morning. On the screen, Travis sat up. He grabbed the traction bar above his head and pulled. His legs, his supposedly shattered, nerve-damaged legs, slid smoothly out of the unstrapped casts. The room went so quiet I could hear the hum of the mini-fridge. On the screen, Travis swung his legs over the side of the bed. He stood up. He stretched, reaching for the ceiling, twisting his torso. "We need to push her on the house, Trav." Vinny called me again. Jessica's voice rang out from the TV speakers, crisp and clear. In the hospital bed, the real Jessica let out a strangled squeak. She lunged toward me. "Turn it off," she screamed. "Mallory, turn it off." I sidestepped her easily. She crashed into the tray table. On the screen, Travis was now doing squats. Deep, athletic squats. She will sign. I will pull the "I do not want to be a burden" card again tonight. She eats that up. She is weak, Jess. The real Travis sat frozen in the bed, his face draining of all color. He looked from the TV to me, his mouth opening and closing like a fish on a dock. "Mallory," he stammered. "Mallory, that is doctored. That is AI." I crossed my arms. "It looks pretty real to me, Travis." Mrs. Granger was clutching her chest. "No," she wailed. "No, my son is hurt. He is hurt. This is a trick." On the screen, Travis laughed. "We are going to be free. You should be thanking the universe for this opportunity to downsize." I looked at the man in the bed. "You wanted to be free, Travis," I said. "You got your wish." The chaos exploded. Jessica was scrambling at the laptop, trying to yank the cord out, but in her panic, she tripped over the power cable and sent the whole tray table crashing to the floor. The laptop clattered, but the connection held. The video looped, showing Travis doing lunges now. Aaron stepped forward, his face a mask of shock and betrayal. "You can walk?" he shouted at his brother. "You made Mom cry every night. You made Mallory sell her house. And you can walk?" Travis held up his hands. "Aaron, listen, it is complicated. I am in debt. I did it for the family. I did it so we could start over. You did it for yourself," Aaron roared. Mrs. Granger was sobbing, a high-pitched, keening sound. She looked at me with venom in her eyes. "You set him up," she screamed. "You vindictive witch. You taped him." I stared at her, feeling absolutely nothing. "He is not hurt, Gladys. He is a fraud. And you helped him." Travis threw off the sheets. He didn't stand up. He was too smart for that. But he sat forward, his eyes wild. "Mallory, listen to me. We can fix this. We can explain. Just delete the video. We can still get the money. We can still pay Vinny. If we do not pay Vinny, he is going to kill me." "I do not have the money, Travis," I said calmly. "What?" he whispered. "I never listed the house," I said. "There is no buyer. There is no wire transfer. There is $0 coming to you." The blood left his face so fast he looked like a corpse. "No," he wheezed. "No, no, no. Friday is the deadline." I checked my watch. "It is 12:05, I said. "You are late." There was a polite knock at the door. It was the most terrifying sound in the world. It cut through the screaming and the sobbing like a knife. The door opened. Sal walked in. He was followed by 2 other men who looked like they were carved out of granite. They wore suits. They looked professional. They looked lethal. Sal smiled. "Good afternoon, everyone," he said. He looked at the TV screen where the video of Travis doing crunches was still playing on a loop. He watched it for a second. Then he looked at Travis. "Nice form," Sal said. Travis shrank back against the pillows, pulling the sheet up to his chin as if cotton could protect him from what was coming. "Sal, wait," Travis squeaked. "The money." The bank had a delay. Sal looked at me. "Is there a delay, Mrs. Granger?" I looked Sal in the eye. "There is no money," I said clearly. "There never was. I am not selling my house to pay for his gambling debts." Sal nodded slowly. He didn't look angry. He looked like a man who had just confirmed a business inventory. "I see," Sal said. He turned to Travis. "You told us you were incapacitated, Travis. You said you couldn't work. You said the only asset was the wife's house." Sal gestured to the TV. "But it looks like you are in peak physical condition, which is good news." One of the granite men stepped forward and closed the door, blocking the exit. Travis started to cry. Real ugly tears. "Please," he begged. "Sal, please, she is lying. She has money. She is not the one who borrowed from us," Sal said softly. "You are. And since you are healthy, we have plenty of work for you to do to pay off the principal. It is going to take a long time, and it is going to be very heavy lifting." Jessica tried to edge toward the bathroom. "Sit down, sweetheart," Sal said without looking at her. "You are the co-signer. You are coming too." I picked up my laptop bag. I unplugged the HDMI cable. The screen went black, but the image of Travis's betrayal hung in the air. I looked at Aaron. "Walk me to my car?" I asked. Aaron looked at his brother, then at his mother, and finally at me. He nodded. He turned his back on them and opened the door. "Mallory!" Travis screamed. "Mallory, do not leave me here. They are going to hurt me." I paused in the doorway. I looked back at him one last time. "Toxic positivity," I said. "Think of it as a workout camp, Travis. You wanted to go to Miami? I hear the trunk of a car is nice this time of year." I walked out. I heard Mrs. Granger screaming my name. I heard Travis begging. And then I heard Sal's voice, low and calm, telling everyone to be quiet. I walked down the hallway. Mr. Henderson raised his coffee cup to me as I passed. I winked at him. I walked past the nurse's station. Nurse Helen didn't look up from her chart, but I saw the corner of her mouth twitch upward. I walked into the elevator with Aaron. The doors closed, sealing off the noise. We walked to the parking garage in silence. The air outside was cold and clean. It smelled of rain and exhaust, but to me, it smelled like freedom. I stopped at my car. "I am sorry," Aaron said. His voice was thick. I had no idea. "I know," I said. "You are a good man, Aaron. Do not let them drag you down." He nodded, wiping his eyes. "What happens now?" "I filed for divorce this morning," I said. "And I filed a fraud report with the police. I gave them a copy of the video. If Sal doesn't kill him, the district attorney will put him in jail. Either way, he is not my problem anymore." Aaron kicked at a loose stone. "Mom is going to hate you forever," he said. I shrugged. "I can live with that," I said. I got into my car. The engine started on the first try for once. I drove out of the garage. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I didn't care what was happening in room 307. I didn't care about the loan sharks or the lies or the fake broken legs. I drove toward the Biltmore estate. I was going to go home. I was going to sleep in my parents' house. And tomorrow I was going to buy a new lock for the front door. Update. 3 months later. The sound of a sander whirring against wood filled the living room of the Biltmore estate. I wiped sweat from my forehead and stood back to admire the floor. The old stained varnish was gone, revealing the beautiful honey-colored oak underneath. It had taken me weeks of weekends, but I was finally restoring the house to what it was meant to be. The doorbell rang. I walked to the door, dusting sawdust off my overalls. It was Ethan, the contractor I had hired to fix the roof. He was holding a clipboard and 2 coffees. "Morning, Mallory," he said. "I brought you a latte. I figured you were sanding today." I smiled, taking the cup. "You figured right." Ethan leaned against the doorframe. The roof is done. It is solid. No more leaks. That is the best news I have heard all year, I said. We stood there for a moment, enjoying the morning sun. It was peaceful. No drama, no lies, just good coffee and honest work. By the way, Ethan said, I saw the news. Your ex got sentenced yesterday. I nodded. I had read the article. Travis and Jessica had been arrested 2 days after the hospital incident. Sal had apparently roughed them up and then dumped them at a police station when he realized they were worth more as snitches than as laborers. They were both serving time for insurance fraud and grand larceny. 3 years, I said. Ethan shook his head. Crazy. Well, at least you are safe. I looked past him at the garden, where the peace lily, the one that had recorded the evidence, was now planted in the ground, thriving in the shade of an oak tree. Yeah, I said, taking a sip of the coffee. I am safe. And the house is safe. So, Ethan said, checking his watch, since the roof is done, does that mean I am fired? Or can I take you to dinner to celebrate not having water buckets in your attic? I looked at him. He was kind. He was steady. He had never once asked me for money. I smiled. You are not fired, I said. And yes, dinner sounds perfect. I closed the door and walked back into my house. My house. The Biltmore estate stood strong around me, silent and protective. I picked up the sander. There was still work to do, but for the first time in a long time, I was looking forward to doing it. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.